Okay, so I'm Matt Kirschenbaum from the University of Maryland. I have a faculty appointment in the English department there, and I'm also the associate director for MITH, which is the Maryland Institute for Technology and the Humanities, currently the home base for the Electronic Literature Organization. I'm going to talk today about preservation as software studies. I'm not a digital preservationist, but I do play one on the web. I think often when I give talks about preservation, it's the sort of eat your vegetables moment for the audience. But I think it's sort of obvious to everybody in the room how integral the preservation enterprise is to software studies. I have published a book from MIT just recently. I was dumbstruck by the prospect of trying to summarize the book in a single sentence until I remembered the author questionnaire that all MIT authors fill out. So there you have it, calibrated to appeal to the software studies impulse buyer in all of us. I was also tempted today to announce the advent of critical storage studies. I will not do that, but storage, inscription forensics, those are central concerns of the book. On the lower left-hand corner, you can see some of my early new media work. You'll notice the flippy disk, the hole puncher that takes a bite out of the diskette to double-side it. Some very different sets of affordances in play, from double-clicking an icon on your desktop to get something off of a hard drive. The image in the middle is actually a highly magnified Washington, D.C. fare card, which has been treated with MagView developers fluid to reveal the striated patterns of magnetic information that's encoded. Over on the right-hand side is an image from what's essentially a version of the electron microscope. It's called magnetic force microscopy. What you're looking at are not actually bits, they're rather sequences of magnetic flux reversals, several of which are required to constitute a bit. So this is imaged from the surface of a hard drive. You can see the sort of palimpsest effect where different data tracks are imperfectly overridden. What this tells us, among other things, is that bits are not the smallest units of computation. They are only the smallest symbolic units of computation. They are not, in fact, the smallest physical inscribed elements. So those are all things that I discuss in the book. Moving onwards, I got my start really in a seminar with Jerome McGann at the University of Virginia, where we were talking about scholarly editing, 19th century texts, what we generally call cultural heritage. And I had really, I think, the one idea that I've had in the course of my career, which was to ask, well, Jerry, what happens when we talk about the born digital and born digital cultural heritage? Of course, I'm not the only person to ask that question, but I think it's becoming an increasingly urgent and pressing issue. Libraries, archives, repositories are getting laptops and hard drives handed to them, along with other kinds of more familiar archival material. The problem is actually much more complicated than simply matters of digital or born digital preservation. What we're really talking about is hybrid cultural heritage. What you see here are items from the what's now the Dina Larson collection at the University of Maryland. Many people know Dina's work. She's somebody who's been part of the electronic writing community since the early 1980s. Dina is a collector, pirate, archivist, or as we tend to call amateur archivists, a hoarder. Dina has last year very generously donated her collection to MITH, where it now exists as a research collection that all of you, for example, are welcome to come and use. But the point I want to make here is simply the hybridity of the artifacts in the collection, both born digital material as well as more traditional archival content, with very nuanced relationships that get expressed between the physical and digital artifacts. We can also talk about vinyl cultural heritage. This is a shower curtain that Dina bequeathed to us. What she's done here is actually taken laminated screenshots from one of her works, Marble Springs, laid them out in sort of diagrammatic fashion, and used colored yarn to connect the different screens to simulate the behavior of links. When I asked our special collections librarian what they would do with a shower curtain, they rolled their eyes. Let's see. So I want to move onward to what is currently a funded project, and really the project which I want to use as emblematic of this relationship between preservation and software studies. This is the Preserving Virtual Worlds project. Some of you may have seen some press about this. You see the vital statistics on the slide. This comes out of the Library of Congress program called NDIP, which is the National Digital Information Infrastructure Preservation Program. You have to be able to say that before they'll give you any money. The institutions involved are the University of Illinois, the University of Maryland, where I am, Stanford. People in the room will know Henry Lowood and others up there who are part of the Stanford group, great people to be working with, and RIT. We're funded for a little under $600,000 for 2 years, which given the scope of the enterprise is a pittance. Our partners on the grant, besides the academic institutions, partners do include Linden Lab as well as the Internet Archive. We're taking virtual worlds. So Jeremy, my screen here went blank on the little timer device. So we take virtual worlds to mean everything from old school interactive fiction. Oh my gosh, it should have stayed blank. Old school interactive fiction on the one hand, to Second Life on the other. One of the tools that we'll be using is a reference model, the Open Archival Information Standard. And here you see different constituent elements of adventure expressed in OAIS. I will conclude. One thing I just want to reinforce is that the discipline that is inherent in the exercise of using these reference models to archive software. You'll notice the specification, for example, for Fortran 4 is part of the material that we will archive along with Adventure's constituent bits. That discipline has much to say to software studies. This is my concluding takeaway slide. Preservation is software studies. We all know that without preservation there is no field. Just to reinforce that, that's an email message I got this morning from Dini Grigar, who is organizing the ELO conference next week. You can see the nature of the challenge. Preservation promotes a focus on extreme materiality. It provokes intellectual property questions, which I think are essential to software studies. It's a bridge to the cultural heritage community, by which I mean librarians, archivists, people in iSchools. They need us. The OAIS model, for example, does not include any mention of hardware or the social contexts in which adventure was played. It's also a bridge, just as importantly, if not more importantly, to fan communities, where much of this knowledge resides. And finally, its preservation is great pedagogy. I always have a blast when I ask my undergraduate students to boot an Apple II, and they don't know what to do with the floppy diskettes. Thank you.